You've definitely heard the phrase dress for success, right? We usually think it's about making a good impression on other people. But what if the most important person you're actually dressing for is yourself? It turns out the clothes on your back can literally change the way your brain works. So let's get into the fascinating science behind your mental dress code. So here's the big question we're tackling. Does what you wear really change how you think? I mean, is this just a placebo effect all in our heads? Or is there a real, measurable psychological process going on? Well, science actually has a name for it, and the answer is a huge, resounding yes. And here it is, enclothed cognition. That's the official term for it. It's the idea that our clothes have this systematic, predictable influence on our psychological processes. And we're not just talking about feeling good. We're talking about measurable changes in our actual cognitive abilities. Now, for this to actually work, there are two key ingredients. It's not enough for an outfit to just have a symbolic meaning, like a power suit meaning business, and it's not enough to just physically wear something. The magic happens in the combination of the two, the symbolic meaning of the clothes and the physical experience of wearing them. So where's the proof? How do we know this is a real thing? Well, it all comes back to this brilliant and actually pretty simple study from 2012 that really put this whole idea on the map. Let's break down how they figured this out. The researchers Adam and Galinsky, they took a simple plain white coat. That's it. Then they split people into three groups. Group number 1 was told they were wearing a doctor's coat. Group 2 was given the exact same coat but was told it was a painter's smock. Then there was a third group that just saw the doctor's coat sitting on the desk. They didn't even put it on. And then everybody took the same tricky test that required a lot of focus. So here's the crucial part, right? The symbolism. The exact same piece of clothing was framed in two completely different ways. When you hear doctor's coat, you think of things like precision, focus, being careful, intelligence. But a painter's smock, that gives off a totally different vibe. Creativity, artistry, being a bit messy and freeform. So the big question was, would just changing the name of the coat actually change how people performed? And the results were, well, they were dramatic. The group wearing the doctor's coat made way fewer errors on the attention test. In fact, the other two groups, the ones who wore the painter's smock and the ones who just saw the coat, made nearly twice as many mistakes. Think about that. Wearing the coat and calling it a doctor's coat literally cut their errors in half. And that is the absolute key to this whole thing. Just seeing the coat on a desk did nothing. It was the physical act of putting on the coat and taking on its symbolic meaning, embodying that careful, attentive nature of a doctor that led to that huge boost in performance. Okay, so a lab coat is a pretty specific example, I get it. But this principle doesn't just apply to white coats. It applies to pretty much everything hanging in your wardrobe. Let's take a look at how this plays out in the real world. So other researchers have found some really fascinating links between our style of dress and our style of thought. For example, when people wear formal business clothes, they tend to think more abstractly, like a CEO looking at the big picture. But when they're dressed casually, their thinking shifts to be more concrete, more focused on the nitty-gritty details. Your outfit could literally be shaping your strategy for the day. And it can even work with fictional characters. This one's pretty fun. In one study, people who wore a Superman t-shirt actually reported feeling more likable, physically stronger, and even superior compared to people in a plain shirt. They didn't just wear the symbol. They started to embody the traits of the hero himself. And this effect can even be physiological, for real. Studies have shown that athletes who wear the color red, which we often associate with dominance and aggression, experience an increased heart rate and even a spike in testosterone before a match. That gives them a real, measurable competitive edge. So we've seen that it works, but the big question is why? What is actually happening in our brains when we put on a specific outfit? Well, it all comes down to a really powerful psychological process. It all comes down to something called priming. Priming is just a fancy word for when being exposed to one thing, like a word or an image, influences your response to something else later on by activating related ideas in your mind. It's like if I say the word doctor, your brain automatically starts thinking about related words like hospital, science, or careful. So, when you physically put on that doctor's coat, you're sending a powerful priming signal to your brain. You're not just wearing a coat, you're activating that whole mental network that you associate with being a doctor. All those ideas about being focused and intelligent.
You are essentially priming your own brain to step into that role.
So what does all this mean for you?
Well, it means you can actually use your closet as a tool to consciously influence your own mindset.
Got a big project where you need to think strategically? Maybe try dressing up a little to help activate that big picture thinking. Need a jolt of confidence for an interview? Wear that one outfit that makes you feel absolutely unstoppable. And remember, the power here has nothing to do with a brand name or price tag. It's all about the personal meaning that the clothes have for you.
So the next time you get dressed, maybe don't just ask yourself, what do I want to wear? Ask, who do I want to be today? Because you might just have the perfect outfit to prime your brain for whatever you've got ahead. So take a look. What's in your closet that could change your mind?